Hello everybody, we're going to be making a keto bread today. It's going to be a version of a white bread. It's going to be made with egg whites. I actually got this recipe on KetoUpgrade's website, and she does a lot of videos and has a great website with a lot of good recipes if you're willing to try it. She's really good. So in order to make this bread, it's pretty simple, but there are a lot of ingredients. So in order to make this bread, we are going to be using water, and we are going to use some about a teaspoon of honey and melt that in the water. We're going to add some yeast to that to give the bread a bread-like smell and taste. And then also we're going to be using some egg white powder, allulose, salt, cream of tartar, and this is optional, but I either use a little bit of arrowroot fiber or a little bit of oat fiber. Just a little bit, but it does make a difference for me in how it tastes. And also we're going to be using some either heavy cream powder or butter powder, so that is up to you. So first things first, I have my water heating up, and I'm going to get my honey. My husband was eating a lot of the keto bread, and so I decided to make this bread for him instead. He does enjoy it. When I first started making it, no, he did not enjoy it. It was awful. It was so drying that it took like a year to swallow it. He said that you would chew your sandwich and chew the cheese and the meat and swallow all that. That food would be in your stomach and the bread would still be in your mouth. Not a joke, it was really bad. But now this is a lot better. So 7 grams of honey, and I'm going to measure it out with a scale just to make sure of the accuracy. I don't really know exactly how much, but I think it's about a teaspoon. Okay, I got my 7 grams. This is a local honey that we buy. It's pretty good. We don't use it very often. I really only use it for the bread, but it is good. Now I need to get my water. Okay, so I forgot to heat up my water. So in the meantime, we are going to measure the other ingredients. And I do sift these as well. So we are going to start out with the salt. The salt I'm not going to sift, so I'm just going to put it in there. It's a half a teaspoon of salt. And this is just a Himalayan pink salt that I have. I do use normally Redmond's, but that's in a grinder. So this just makes it easier. I don't have to grind it up then and measure it. And then after that, I'm gonna get this. So this is what I'm gonna sift my ingredients with. I'm gonna do a half a teaspoon of cream of tartar. And to that, we are going to add some Psyllium husks. I'm actually not going to grind those because they're pretty thick. So they don't stick together. They're just not going to go through my sieve very well. So it calls for 10 grams of whole Psyllium husks. And I use the Anthony's brand. And that was about one of those tablespoons. That's 9 grams. Turn off that water. Okay, so we got our Psyllium husks. We are going to use, her recipe called for either 20 to 80 grams of allulose. I usually use right around 20 grams. I don't want to use too much. But it just helps it brown a little bit. And this I do put through my sieve because it has a tendency to clump up. So there I got 21 grams. And I'm zeroing it out at the end of everything I measure just to make sure I'm getting accurate measurements. We are going to use 100 grams of egg white powder. That's only 88 grams. Okay, that's 100 grams. So this I definitely do put through this sifter as well. I used to use the old sifter with the handle that turns, and this is just, to me, it's so much easier. That old sifter kind of got in the way, and I think I got this strainer at the 99-cent store, and it works perfect. Okay. So now we are going to use my optional ingredient is my Arrowroot fiber. I am using only 9 grams of that. So 9 grams of Arrowroot fiber is 35 calories, 8 carbs, and 0 fat. So all of these ingredients that we're putting in first have no fat, because if you put the ingredient like the butter powder in with it and all these ingredients, then when I try to beat it to get the egg white stiff, it's not going to beat up because of the fat. So we have to do the butter powder very last. So this is 9 grams. And they say 9 grams is a tablespoon, but I always just measure everything because you can never get the exact amount, I feel like, unless you measure. So that is all of our ingredients. Let's see, besides the yeast and the water and honey, yep, and the butter powder, which is last. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to have 292 grams of warm water. And that water does need to be temperature of like 100 to 110 degrees. So I'm doing 292 grams. I think that's 299. It'll work. So I'm going to stir it up. To get that honey melted. And then we're going to do 9 grams of yeast. And this I just sprinkle right over the top of the water. Our yeast. So that's gonna just sit there and bloom a little bit while we mix the rest of the ingredients up. Okay, so our oven is being preheated to 325 degrees. So the last ingredient we are going to measure out is going to be our butter powder. We're going to add this in after we beat all the other ingredients together. And the butter powder, it's either heavy cream powder or butter powder. I just happen to have butter powder. We're going to use 24 grams. And this definitely needs to be sifted because it is clumpy. I accidentally got 30 grams, but it'll work. Okay, so we are done measuring and we are ready to rumble. I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. So this is what my water looks like with the honey and the yeast in it. It'll just get a little foamy on top. So now we're going to beat up all of the ingredients. You are not going to be able to use a whisk. You're going to need to use some kind of an electric beater because these, even though this is egg white powder, it's still going to get stiff just like egg whites. So no need to be careful, just dump it all in. And I usually put a little guard up because it does have a tendency to be very liquidy and fly all over. So it would help if I plugged it in and turned it on. Okay. So I usually start it out on low just to kind of get it mixed in. I don't know if you can see that. So it's very liquidy now, but it will stiffen up. And I'll show you what it looks like when it does stiffen up. That way you know when it is done. Oh, let me find my stuff. I'm unorganized. I'm like a Sesame Street chef. Okay. Usually, I'll turn it off right at the very beginning and just kind of scrape down the sides just in case any of that powdered ingredients sticks. You guys are getting horrible angles. Sorry. This is not a professional production. Okay. So now we're gonna beat. Be right back. This is what it looks like after a few minutes. It's still very liquidy. We're gonna keep on going. In the meantime, while you're waiting for it to beat, you just do your dishes and put your ingredients up. These are very handy. Since I make this bread all the time, it's just easier for me to keep all the ingredients right up there behind me where it's easy to grab. Except that big egg white powder, that goes in the pantry. And the butter powder. So it's getting almost done here, but it's not quite. See what that looks like? Okay, let's see. Now it's not done, but I'll let you see what it looks like so you can kind of tell when it's getting done. So when you lift up, you see how it's getting those peaks on there, but they kind of droop. Not done yet, but very, very, very close. I think we're almost having it. Almost done. See how it's getting stiffer there? That is looking pretty good. I think I'm gonna beat it for just a little bit longer. And then we'll just dump our butter powder in. That is good. And we're just gonna dump our butter powder in. No need to be careful about it, except careful to get it in there, but you can just dump it all in. We're gonna give it another mix of about 10 seconds, and then it's gonna be good to go. Okay, so we are good. I'm just gonna mix what flew up on the sides. Okay. Just want to make sure that butter powder is all through it. Now, when I first learned the recipe, KetoUpgrade, on her channel, she had said to let this rise at on the counter on a warm oven. Let it rise for quite a while. I used to let it rise for about an hour, but I don't do that anymore, and I don't notice a difference. So that's up to you. It will not fall at room temperature, you know, rising like a yeast bread, but there's not any difference, so I don't go through it anymore. So just so you can see, this is what I'm doing. Let's picture here, whoops. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. I'm dumping it into a parchment lined bread pan. And I'm making sure that I push the batter down. Now when this bakes, for whatever reason, it always bakes funky and has like a weird shape, but it tastes good. I'll show you what the loaf looks like after. Okay. Just scrape all of that off of there. And that's it. If you want to let it raise it on the stove, you know, the stove's on or the oven's on and it's at 325, so it creates a really warm surface. So if you want, you can put it on the stove and let it rise. But like I said, honestly, I don't see a difference, so why do it? Now I'm going to throw it in the oven at 325, and I know from my experience, my oven takes 28 minutes. Hey Alexa, set an alarm for 28 minutes.
Good afternoon, Candy. 28-minute alarm set for 3:30.
We'll be back. So while we're waiting for our bread to get done, I'm going to make some hummingbird food for our feathered friends. I do have a container that I buy, and I do have a container that I buy some sugar and put it in, and I label it hummingbird food. So the ratio is 4:1. So 1 cup of sugar, 4 cups of water, half a cup of sugar, 2 cups of water, and that's always the amount I make, depending on how many hummingbirds you are. We don't have that many, but we have a few. We got the bullies over here. I don't understand why. I go to my sister-in-law's house and they just all fly together and eat together, and they're so loving. And here we got the ghetto ones. They fight. They will get on a perch and watch that hummingbird feeder, and they may not want to drink, but boy, they don't want anybody else to drink. I don't get it. They're mean. So I'm going to use the other water that I heated up when I was making my bread. Melt that sugar for the hummingbirds. And I do change this mixture out once a week. I have extra hummingbird feeders, and we just switch them out, and then I wash them out real good. That way, because if you leave them out too long, they're going to get moldy, and then that's going to kill our little friends. If I don't have hot water like this, I'll just heat it up in the microwave. Let me go get my feeders. And you can definitely tell the difference between the new feeder, which is this one, and the old feeder. They get faded in the sun, but they work the same. Those birds don't care if it's a little faded and it's pink instead of red. It does not stop them from eating. And these are inexpensive feeders, and they love them. They do not have the little stands, you know, like there's some that have the little ledge where the hummingbird can sit and relax. I have those too, but if you want to buy the cheap ones, you could also just tie around a little piece of wire or bread tie or something and put it. They'll sit on it if they want, but I don't bother them. They just drink what they want and fly away. And these particular feeders, I do like them because they're easy to clean. You know, some of them, they don't come apart, but these can all come apart. Like that comes apart and it's easy cleaning. You can pop these little flowers out to clean them too. It is not hard work. I usually put about 3 of them up a week. During the summertime, maybe more, but this time of year, just 3. I try to spread them out because sometimes, I'm telling you what, they're ghetto. I try to hide one around the corner, but then those birds will switch where they sit so that they can keep an eyeball on all 3. They're crafty like that. They know that they want that food. Now our friends can eat too. Okay, so I just took my bread out. I poked it with a toothpick and it comes out clean. So the bread is done. So we can take it out and we do not need to wait. I cannot do this. We do not need to wait for it to cool off. We just lift it right out and sit it on a cooling rack. And that's it. We got our bread. See, it turns out funky. It always has a weird shape on one edge. One little tip, you can reuse your parchment paper. So just keep that and it will be perfect. You see that steam? It is hot and steamy. And the perfect little loaf of low-carb bread.